How to fix Manchester United under Ruben Amorim? That is a question that I'm sure a lot of Man United fans are thinking at the moment, especially after the 1-0 loss to Tottenham Hotspur. And we're going to be covering everything from INEOS and the ownership all the way to Ruben Amorim and the playing squad as well. But there's a lot to discuss. Where do we start? Toby, I'm going to give you the floor. Where do you want to start off with?
Yeah, I think we're probably best off hopping straight into that Tottenham game, as you mentioned, the 1-0 defeat on the weekend. And it was a bit of a strange game. It's two sides who are severely underperforming against their expectations of this season. Two sides who have been struck by injuries recently and almost all season long, especially in Spurs' case. And a game that I think produced a result in a game that sort of reflects that. I think it was an okay game. There were some good moments, I think, in the game. It was probably a lot to take tactically and a lot we can take away to talk about Man United. But really a true lack of quality, I think, in two sides that we certainly expect a lot more from.
Yeah, and I think that was completely reflected by the fact that the way James Maddison scored it was the save by Nona. He powered it back into the danger area and just a tap in, and at the end of the day, that was it. It was a 1-0 win for Spurs, and they end up now leapfrogging Man United, who now are in 15th place in the Premier League table. In position wise, not far off the relegation zone. In points, thankfully, they still have 12 points to Ipswich Town in 18th place, the team highest up in that relegation zone. But I don't think they're going to be in any danger of going down. I say that despite their recent run of form. They do have Everton and Ipswich Town to play the next two games, which is, if you were to be a bit more of a pessimistic United fan, probably a bit worrying. But I think overall they'll probably be fine. But I do agree with you. I mean, the lack of quality, I think that was highlighted by the injuries that Man United suffered going into the game. I think that bench with Victor Lindelof being the only senior player and everyone else being a teenager really highlighted the issues that are going on in Man United. And Ruben Amorim had to scrape together a starting 11 that could go out there, and ultimately they didn't deliver. And I don't think any of us were really too surprised. Have you been surprised with how bad Manchester United have been under Ruben Amorim since he's taken over? Because obviously, 14 matches played in the Premier League, only 14 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, 8 losses. That's obviously not good enough traditionally for Man United. But have you been surprised that, they haven't been a little bit better at least?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm surprised that they haven't even had that slight new manager bounce that we really do see in the Premier League quite a lot. I mean, we look at David Moyes' Everton. It doesn't particularly feel like much has changed for them in terms of the way that they're playing a lot of times. And that's really been, I think, a morale boost more than anything, where under Amorim, there was so much excitement, it felt, in the fan base of his appointment, but none of that has really been immediately reflected in their results. And you would expect a little bit of upturn, but if anything, it's actually got worse since Amorim's come in, which is really, really surprising. I really like him as a long-term appointment, and that's a really key factor, I think, for United, is that he's going to need a lot of time to bring in this new system, this new style of play, which is going to take a long time to adapt to, and maybe that immediate change in system and style of play has caused things to get worse rather than to get better. But ultimately, it's only a manager change, and I think a lot of Man United's poor form before Amorim came in was, and still is, that lack of quality in the squad. There doesn't feel like there's any player that you can look to in that squad to change a game, besides maybe Amad Diallo, who is injured at the moment and really felt was missing from that Spurs game. And just a real lack of quality, real lack of technical quality, a real lack of players who are going to pick up that ball, drive it forward, and really keep that ball in those key areas and create good chances for Man United, which are that is where they're really, really struggling. Only 28 goals in the Premier League this season, and yeah, it's not going to get better soon. And I think that's something that we need. Well, Man United need to really focus on. It is more the long term than this sort of short term upturn, because there is a lot wrong in that squad, really.
Yeah, and I've seen this going around everywhere, because I think part of the issue comes from the fact that what is short-term pain? I've heard that phrase all the time, but there needs to be some context given around it. Like, for example, how long is short-term? Is it just the manager's first 10 games? Is it just the remainder of that first season? Is it this season and next season, or is it further than that as well? But also, what is pain? Is it? I mean, Man United fans are definitely feeling pain at the moment, but is it being bottom half of the Premier League? Is it not challenging even for Europe next season, the season after that? What is short term? How bad could it actually get? And I think in everyone's minds, these are all different things. Some people going, I think it's this season, next season we've got to be better. I think it's just, the league form, but let's look at the cup form. Everyone's got a different opinion on what they believe short term pain is, because everyone's got a different opinion on where the quality of the squad is at the moment. But really, well, I mean, I'll throw it to you, Tobes. What do you think short term is? Can you quantify that? And can you quantify the pain as well, if you can?
Yeah, it's one of those with United where it doesn't feel like it can get much worse, but it really could, which is actually kind of scary. You think the beast that Man United should be in terms of chasing for the title, and as you say, battling for a top half finish currently, it feels is even a struggle. Little tweaks that they can make, and I certainly think there is things. I think maybe I really like Amorim's intention to come in and play the system that he wants to play immediately. But I do think that there needs to be a bit of a compromise with the players that he has at the moment. And I think the Patrick Dorgu signing, I think, is brilliant and I think fits their system perfectly. But we look before that and it was Dallo or Garnacho playing as left wing backs that just did not feel natural at all. And maybe there should have been a little bit more of an adjustment period. Maybe he should have stuck with things how they were for a couple months, playing a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 as they were before, and easing that maybe behind the scenes of the three back with wing backs as we go on, as opposed to really going straight in and then shuffling the squad, shuffling the team, trying to find the players who fit. And I think that system change really hasn't brought out much of a different style of play. I mean, they're still trying to play it out the back, doing it far too slowly, really struggling to get the ball up and maintain it in high areas. And I think that's something that they should maybe adjust a little bit, is get that ball up the field a lot quicker. Look a little bit more direct sometimes. Look for a little bit of those long balls sometimes. We see that at the top sides this season and last season have really stepped up their long balls percentage, playing out up to the striker, holding it up and winning those second balls has been a really key area. And that's something that United don't really do. And with a player like Højlund playing up front, I think that's something that he can do. And yeah, maybe that's not Amorim's particular style of play. He likes getting it wide and using those channels, but there needs to be a few little tweaks at the moment to get them ticking, and then look for the style of play long term. Really, are there any little system tweaks that you've noticed that you could bring in, like that more direct play?
Well, I'll tell you what I definitely wouldn't do. I definitely would not change to going back to a 4, because, yeah, maybe results were better, but long term, that's not going to be the way that Amorim wants to play. So therefore, changing that in the short term to then get short term results will then lead to the players thinking, okay, this is going to work. And then when you want to change it back to 3 at the back, he's going to have the same problem again. I do see some glimmers of hope. It's very little, if I'm being honest, mate. I think in a couple of times in that Tottenham game, they did go long, and Højlund wasn't able to get on the end of it. But when they did, I mean, it was at the right moment. The ball wasn't quite right, or the run wasn't quite right. We could definitely see them trying it. I think I agree with you. Dorgu looks great on the left hand side. He's definitely the future. He just needs a little bit more help on the right hand side. I don't think Dallo's the answer at right wing back. I really thought he could have been, considering in the back 4 he was getting forward a lot under Erik ten Hag, and I thought, maybe some of the attacking play could come in really handy. But I think what we've seen of him so far, I think, no, not for me. He's far too deep in possession, and he needs to be much higher up the pitch. I mean, he does get higher up the pitch. He's not enough of a threat, so not that. I will say, I thought Xerxes off the ball was a disgrace. I thought on the ball, he was actually really good. And I don't know what you do about that, because you need to have both offense and defense to your game. Otherwise, you're just a liability, and a top side, well, not even a top side anymore. Anyone in the Premier League will punish you for that if everyone's not working together. There are things. I mean, Lisandro Martinez, prior to his ACL injury, I thought he on the ball was looking really good. Walking into midfield and then putting a decent ball into the box. I thought he looked good doing that. But now he's out. Like you said, Diallo's out. It just feels like there's no momentum. They can't really Anything that's good, they can't seem to build on it, and that's a real problem. I mean, they really desperately. I was saying this about Spurs a couple of weeks ago. They desperately need an international break, but even after the international break, they've loaned out some of their players who they really could have done with for their squad, and the players they have, some of the best players, have got long-term injuries, and they're going to struggle. It is, I think, unfortunately, just going to be a hard slog to the end of the season, and that's probably not what Man United fans want to hear. What could they do? I mean, they're still in the FA Cup, qualified in the top eight of the Europa League. There's a chance, but with the injuries, I doubt they're going to do anything in those competitions. Do you think that's fair?
It's a tough one because I think the way that they're playing at the moment, they're not really controlling games very well. I think when they're playing the top sides, they're lacking possession and they're really over relying on counter attacks and moving it far too quickly. And when they're coming up against slightly lesser sides, they are having that possession, but they're not really having the cover and control defensively, which is where teams are keeping them out. And I think in a league format, that is a bit of a recipe for disaster for a side to be up there. But however, in the cup competitions, we do see sides that have 5, 10, 15 minutes in a game. That's sometimes all you need in a cup game to really turn it on and completely change a game. You don't necessarily need much control in some of those games. So I would certainly say, and I mean, it's quite evident as we've seen in the Europa League and the FA Cup so far, with some good wins, especially like that win against Arsenal in the FA Cup. They didn't play particularly well, but they got the result. And I think that's something that they could carry on to do in the FA Cup. There's not too many top sides left in that FA Cup, really. I mean, Manchester City obviously being the best. But besides that, I think they could, on their day, still beat most of the other teams in that competition. And the same in the Europa League. I really think they should focus their efforts on that because I think it'll be a good morale boost for the players, for Amorim, to get far or win one of those competitions. And but that's the thing. If they're like you said, with those injuries and that squad problem at the moment, if they're focusing too hard on the FA Cup and Europa League, as you said, how much worse can it get in the league? And a couple positions lower in the league if they continue to really focus on those competitions. And it's getting really scary territory. Not that I think they would ever go down. They are too good to do that, but stranger things have happened. So I think they need to have a little bit of a balance, but really should be focusing on those competitions.
Yeah, I think in terms of the league, I think traditionally, obviously, it is unacceptable for Man United to be in this position. Where they are now, 40 points, you don't really need that many points to stay up in the league anymore. It's now traditionally more like 36, but in the last 5 years, I think that number's dropped down to like 32. So if they're on 29 already, theoretically, they only need to get 3 more points. And considering Ipswich are on, what, 17 points after 25 games, are they really going to double the point tally now in the remaining 13 games? I don't think so. As much as goodwill there is, I think we need to be a bit realistic there. So I think Man United won't get relegated. I think the cup competitions, like you said, I think the Europa League will be harder to win. I think they're not necessarily the big names in the Europa League just because of the fact that Champions League teams no longer drop down into the Europa League competition. But I do look at the likes of, Lazio. I think they're a very good side. Matteo Guendouzi ripping it up for them at the moment. I think the likes of Athletic Club as well. I mean, you've got Nico Williams, you've got the Williams brothers, Inaki as well. They won't be an easy side for them to face if they do come against them. I I mean, maybe even Tottenham with the players that they got returning from injury as well. They were previously favourites prior to this massive injury period that they've gone through. So I don't see it just because Man United's injuries won't come back and be better. And also, the players who are playing week in, week out will be so tired having to play all those games. I mean, the fact that, there wasn't a sub until it was that young striker Obi who came on in what, extra time of the second half. So, I don't know. Plus, I think some of the players that they do have at the moment aren't even playing to their potential. Like, we haven't even touched on Casemiro, who I thought for someone who's had the career he's had, has the medals that he's won, I thought he was hiding in that game against Tottenham. I'll be completely honest with you. I thought there were times where Bruno Fernandes was on the other side of the pitch to Casemiro. Bruno would switch it to the wing back on the other side, and Fernandes would then make a run and get to the ball before Casemiro had jogged 2 steps. I'll be honest. I thought he really tried to hide in that game, and so often he was right next to Fernandez in possession, but out of possession didn't move. I think out of possession was fine because I think Amram told them, one of you needs to stay in the middle. But I think out of in possession, sorry, that they were just in each other's way, and I think he didn't want the ball, and I can understand it because I think he is becoming a pressing trigger. Anytime the ball passed to him, other opposition teams are going, okay, now we press because you've seen him give the ball away so often, and even reports are recording today that he's happy at Man United. Yeah, you might be happy with the wages. He's only started, I think, maybe or maybe 5 of the games that Ruben Amorim has managed, and I think in his 20 games he's managed as Man United manager. So I think even with the players that they have, I don't think that at the form they're in at the moment, with the confidence as low as it is, that they could do anything. And so even Fulham in the FA Cup, I think that's going to be really tough. That's going to be really tough. And like I said about Premier League, Ipswich and Everton to come up next. Everton are above Man United, and Everton, with the way they're playing at the moment, 4 wins and 1 draw in the last 5 games. I think Everton are favourites in that game.
Yeah, certainly based on form, you can't really argue against that. And like you said, I think with Casemiro, I think they certainly missed Ugarte in that midfield. I think he'd been playing a lot better recently. And I think you saying how Fernandes is making those runs to make up for, I think just sums up Man United generally at the moment. He seems to really be the only one. He's not even performing at his best level, I would say, because I think he is a fantastic player on his day. He is one of the best players in the Prem. He is performing a lot better than everyone else around him. He's now dropping deep into a deeper midfield role to make up for some of those absences. We saw him playing almost up front in a few games, and is really trying to carry that side at the moment, but he's getting almost no support, as you said, with Casemiro. And I think that was summed up in that last 10 minutes of the Tottenham game. Tottenham was still pressing and looking for a second goal, as we would expect under Ange, but it was when Man United got the ball and got the chance to go forward. It was honestly, watching it was actually embarrassing for the league that this is one of the biggest sides in the world, or what they should be. In the way they were playing, I think Man United in that last 10 minutes, there was a spell of about a minute or two where they gave the ball away 4 or 5 times, and there was about 5 minutes on the clock. You're looking for an equaliser against one of the other big sides in the country, and you can't even keep the ball in the middle third of the pitch. And it was players like Casemiro just giving the ball away, or not going to the defence and picking up that ball, like we see with so many top midfielders in the league. Go to that defence, be the one to pick up the ball, show some passion, show some drive, and show some courage to pick it up and try and do something with it. Whereas everyone was just standing around looking for each other, giving the ball away. And if anything, it looked more like Tottenham were the ones more likely to score in the last 10 minutes there. And if you can't have players to pick it up when you need them to, and it's desperate and there needs to be some urgency, it's really difficult to expect them to be able to do that from the first whistle against like an Everton or an Ipswich. Where is the motivation going to come from those games if it can't even come from the last 10 minutes when you're 1-0 down against Spurs?
Yeah, and you just reminded me of something else as well, mate, because I remember Jamie Carragher did a piece on Monday Night Football after Ruben Amorim's first game in charge, which was away to Ipswich Town. And, love him or hate him, his opinions aren't great, but I think some of his analysis is really top notch. And he was talking about how Casemiro kept dropping into that back line when Ipswich were high up the pitch. And Carragher was saying you don't need to do that when it's a back 5. When it's a back 4, that is a great position to pick up between the fullback who's going out to the wide man and the centre back who's on the edge of the penalty. That's a great position. But in a back 5, you don't need to do that because you've got enough bodies in the box. Where he actually needs to be is out there in midfield to close the midfielder who's going to probably get the pass and pick up the ball. And in that instance that he used on that Monday Night Football match, he was picked up on Amari Hutchinson, who Casemiro couldn't close down quickly enough, who ended up either assisting or scoring, I can't exactly remember, but Casemiro was in the back line. Well, there was a moment in that first half where I remember counting, and there were 8 Man United players in the back line, in the same line on the pitch, and I just thought to myself, you got the goalkeeper, Onana, you got 8 players in the straight line, and you got just Højlund and Xerxes. What if, the person on the ball at that time, I remember in my head, it was Pedro Porro. What if he just cuts it back, and then all of a sudden Madison's there, or one of the midfielders is there, and there's just Højlund and Xerxes, and there's 8 Man United players in the line. not even in possession, just out of possession as well. Just get out. Not everything has to be like so back to the walls defensively, but then you also need to have some attacking threat and output and just mark your man. I mean, there was only like four Spurs attackers actually with that eight. Four of them could have gone out a bit more and created a bit more space, but it just feels like, unfortunately, regardless of the players that are on the pitch, it just feels like they. I know it's a different system, but it feels like even the basics of, there's your defensive line, here's the midfield line, here's the attacking line. Even that they don't seem to have. And so I want to really ask, I think, Tobes, I mean, what can Man United fans take from what they're seeing at the moment? Are there qualities in some players or players as a whole that you're like, okay, going forward, they're definitely going to be part of the plan and the process? And are there some where you're like, I don't think this player suits the system or are good enough whatsoever? Do you have any ones that you like certain either way or the other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, I mean, you've got to look at the people maybe who have performed best this season. I think you look at Amad Diallo. I think he is somebody, personally, I think actually could be somebody who could play on that right wing back. I think he would be excellent there. We saw that when he was first playing. That's where he was, and probably where he was best. I think with the way Amorim uses his wing backs, it's not too fussed defensively, to be honest. It is more about keeping that width and attacking, and those two inside forwards behind the striker are a lot narrower, which is why, well, obviously injuries aside, is why Xerxes seems to be playing there at the moment. Bruno Fernandes, I think, is another one who is certainly good enough for Man United. Where does he fit into that system? Probably behind a striker, and I think at the moment he's actually being restricted playing in that midfield too. I would push him forward. Obviously, when they have their full squad, I think that's where he should be behind the striker. The midfield and back line, I think Ugarte fits the system well. He's got a really good engine on him. He's good defensively. He's able to carry the ball as well. I'm not too sure about his partner, whether that's Mainu or a new signings needed. And then the big question, it's players playing in a back three, I think is a really difficult one. I think, like you said, Martinez really suits that left centre-back role. Not too sure about any of the other centre-backs at the moment. I think they're probably all good enough. In De Ligt and Euro especially, I think are good enough. But I think they're going to need the most time to really adapt to that system.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on Ugarte. I agree on Diallo. I agree on Fernandez. The one thing I will say about Fernandez, I'm not, because of the injuries, he's playing and just filling in wherever he needs to be on that given game. I'm not exactly sure where his best position is going to be. Initially, I did think it was going to be one of those number 10 positions, but if he had some legs alongside him, I do like him pulling the strings in that Man United side because he seems to be the only one playing with any sort of brain cells. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think Bruno is in Man United's best team. And with the PSR issues surrounding the club, I'm sure that, wherever position they don't end up strengthening, he'll have to play that one. And I think that's quite unfortunate because you want to get the best out of him. But I think actually he's smart enough. He's a captain. You can give him that responsibility and be fine. I agree on the back line. Martinez, it's a shame about his ACL, but you got to assume he's probably not going to be back until 2020, the new year of 2026. So you will probably need someone for the short term there. I agree on Euro for the future. I think De Ligt and Maguire, if they were to be the second choice central defender of the back three behind someone else who was elite, not a problem. But it's because they're playing week in, week out, they kind of look inferior, and obviously they do considering how well the rest of the team is doing. Dorgu is obviously just brought in, looks really good, absolutely a keep. But I think, I'll be honest, I mean, I'll ask you and then I'll answer. What do you make of the young United youngsters? Kobe Mainu, Alejandro Garnacho. Obviously, a lot of talk about them leaving the club because of the fact that they can, Man United can make pure profit from them for PSR purposes. Rumors of 60 million for Garnacho in January from the likes of Chelsea. That didn't materialize. But do you keep them? And if you do, what do you think their best position is?
Mainu, I think, is certainly a keep at the moment. I think like you said with PSL, they're not going to be able to sign a load of midfielders. And I think going forward, their midfield probably needs to be Ugarte, Mainu, and Fernandes in that 10 behind. I do agree with you, though, that I think Fernandes could play that role. And at times against Spurs, he was the one pulling the strings. But I think once the system comes into how it should work, I think it needs to be Mainu and Ugarte in there sort of keeping a bit of control, as I said, something where they're really lacking at the moment. And I'm not really sure where that leaves Garnacho. I think wingers like Garnacho, who are traditional wingers, I don't think really fit into Ruben Amorim's system. I don't think he can play as a wing back. I don't. He's a left foot. He's a left winger who likes to cut in on that right foot, and I don't think that really fits into either position. I think he needs to be playing in like a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. And I really rate him as a player, but maybe doesn't suit the system, and therefore probably could be a good sale for Man United if they can get a good price for him. I think they really should be pushing for 75 million, around that mark, because he's so young and he has so much potential and he would be amazing for other clubs. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to play his best as either a wing back or as one of those inside forwards. Just doesn't really feel like it suits him.
No, it doesn't feel like it suits him at all. I think he's far too direct, and the service that he should be providing the number 9, he never will, because he'll always want to score the goals, always want to get the assists. Nothing wrong with that, but I think that in this system, I actually looked at Spurs and I thought someone like Dejan Kulusevski, someone who can play on the wing but can also play in midfield, someone who's technically really good but also has a little bit of pace about him. He'd be perfect for one of those number 10 positions for Man United in a 3-4-3. And I did think that they need someone like that, but yeah, I agree. I think Garnacho is just far too direct, and yeah, there's still time for him to learn though. That's the thing. But it's just he's got to play every week. He's never going to get a break. There's going to be pressure on him because he's a youngster coming through the ranks. It just feels like the wrong environment for him to grow and develop. But I will say on Mainu, I'm not entirely sure, because Amram did come out and say that obviously he's not sure about him in the double pivot because of the fact that he's not sure about his ability to track back and his legs. I I do see where he's coming from, if I'm being honest. I think on the ball he's great. I think similarly to Garnacho, I think he suits a back four system. If he can be one of the, if it's a 4-3-3 and he can play one of the 8 positions, I think he's probably suited really well and can play amazingly well. We saw how they did for England in the what was it, the last tournament, the Euros. Yeah, you saw how they did for the Euros. But in a 3-4-3, I think he's gonna have to learn. I think that's why you saw him in one of the 10 positions. You saw him up front as well in one game. I think it was against Crystal Palace, and yeah, I don't know. I have more questions than I do answers, which is probably how Man United fans are feeling right now. But let's a thought exercise, shall we? Based on the players who are at the club at the moment, so not out on loan, what? And let's say hypothetically, because they have no players, that everyone is fully fit. What do you think their best starting 11 is?
So I think it almost, I think it picks itself. I think in terms of, if I list through it quickly, and if you want any changes, it'd be Onana, Martinez, Yoro, and Delict. You'd have Dorgu, Ugarte, Mainu. I'd probably go Mazraoui actually at right wing back. I think he's got a better wing back than Dalot. Dalot I think is a better player, but again, I just don't think he fits the system. I think he likes to invert and drive inside, and I don't think you want that in a wing back. Probably be Højlund up top with Fernandes behind. Oh, actually, no, I wanted Diallo as a wing back. I scratched that. Diallo as a wing back, and then that doesn't leave many options, does it? Really, to be behind the striker, Højlund, Fernandes, and probably still would be Garnacho at the moment. As much as I said, I don't think it fits the system. I think that's where they probably need to strengthen. I think that's just highlighted that for me. What would you reckon?
So, I agree. Just a couple of changes. So still the same back four of Onana, Martinez, Delit, Yoro. Still Dorgu left wing back. Still Ugarte midfield. I do have questions about Kobe Mainoo in that double pivot. Not saying they should sell him, but I have questions of him. I think if they were playing right here, right now, I'm I'm gonna go Collier. I really do like him. I think he's brave on the ball. He's got the legs, and I think in that two-man midfield you need legs, and I think Collier's got it. So I'm gonna go him. I'm gonna agree with you, Diallo, right wing back, because I don't think Dallo or Masraoui are there. I am gonna agree with you on Fernandez. I'm gonna agree with you on Hoyland. But probably gonna go for the man that you've probably forgot, and probably all Man United fans have forgot. I'm gonna go with Mason Mount if he is fit, which you cannot rely on him to be fit. I mean, the thought process is here is everyone's fit. I mean, maybe you could include the likes of Luke Shaw. Is probably someone else that everyone just forgets. But yeah, I'm gonna go Hoyland, Fernandez, Mount. A serious lack of pace apart from the wing backs. But I think Mount thrived in that Chelsea system where they won the Champions League. Fernandez, let him get as far towards goal as possible and get goals and assists. That could work. Would it work? I don't know. They definitely need some serious quality, but I think that's the best teams that we could probably come up with. And we should probably shift the conversation now a little bit further up at Man United because, rightly so, I think it's fair to say there has been a lot of criticism of INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what he's done since he's come in for the year and a bit now. I think it came in November, December time of 23, so a year and a bit now. Um, we can't really talk about the Glazers because they're never there. So INEOS are the face of it. What have you made of them in general? I'll give you that opening before we get into the specifics.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a lot of other club ownership changes where there's more hope, where there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel that they've sort of going to be coming in and really saving the club. I think if anything, with a lot of the changes they've made and a lot of things they've done behind the scenes in terms of cuts and firing staff, really cutting down departments, trying to pinch the pennies and save a bit of money, and really being quite ruthless. I think if anything has actually made the morale worse at the club in the short term. I don't think the fans are particularly on side at the moment. We're yet to see really sort of a big injection of cash in the window, and I think a lot of that is probably down to PSR. I think they want to, and I think they need to. And maybe we'll see that in the summer, like you said. If we see those Garnacho and Mainu sales, there might be some push in the window and some quality. But yeah, it's a really difficult one for Man United and the way that they operate in the transfer windows. They just pay so much for what they get and the quality they get. They really overpay, and clubs know that now. It's not even like it's like with Newcastle. I think when the ownership came in, there was big, not expectation, but it really gave the fans a lot of hope with that change from Mike Ashley to the Saudi-owned club that they are now. But they still haven't gone out and splashed absolutely loads of cash, and they've kept it in line. And it feels like that boost has still really been there, and they've probably spent similar amounts. It just doesn't feel as positive with INEOS. It's really strange, and whether that's, like I said, the things they've sort of done behind the scenes, or more so sort of on the field, I'm not sure. But it's going to be a massive window in the summer for them, isn't it? Really, I think to get the fans and the club back on side.
It's almost a case study of how to take over a football club and then ruin the morale almost immediately. It's like you said, it's unprecedented. The bad mood around new ownership so quickly. Like I think Chelsea, there was a bit of mixed feelings, but I wouldn't say it was as negative as Manchester United's is right now. I mean, you didn't even mention the fact that obviously they had a decision with Eric Ten Hag in the summer after he won the FA Cup. Sack him or give him a new contract. Gave him a new contract, then just sacked him in November. Also, the fact they had to pay him off as well. I think reportedly £15 million, which that's a player or that's wages of a couple of players. Then you bring in Ruben Amorim. Then he doesn't want to come in. He wants to come in the summer because he knows there's going to be an adaptation period with the system, and he wants a pre-season. He realizes that the opportunity is too big. He wants to come to Man United. You respect him for that, and you love him for that. But then all of a sudden, you don't back him as much as you would have liked, and then you take away some of his players, and then the injuries come, and then you're like, well, what do you expect? And also the fact that, I mean, the big one that really stands out to me is, oh my God, I've forgotten his name. The director of football that they took from Newcastle and then sacked 5 months later. Oh my god.
I can't remember his name either, but yeah, I
Oh,
know
how
who
good.
you're
Because Jason
referring to.
Wilcox has now taken over as sporting director, who they pinched from Southampton, I think it was. But that was after Dan Ashworth. That's the one. Dan Ashworth got sacked after 5 months, and I was like, he had this massive gardening leave period. You spent, I want to say, like 8 figures trying to get him out of Newcastle, and then you sack him after 5 months, give him payoff, and now you don't have a director of football, and then Jason Wilcox, who's meant to be somewhere else in the club, is taking over. Just red flags, just massive, big red flags, and it's just, yeah, and the fact that they've increased season ticket prices and match day tickets as well to, in line with Spurs, but Spurs aren't really necessarily happy with their ownership in the likes of Daniel Levy and ENIC right now. So yeah, fans aren't happy with that ownership, but let's copy that ownership. And in terms of table as well, Spurs aren't great. So yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. It just feels rotten, and I'm so glad I'm not a Man United fan right now because I don't know how I would feel about the future of the club. I mean, sure, they probably want to take the club somewhere else in terms of the future and success, but I don't know. It feels like there are better ways of going about it than they have done. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it's 100% fair. It's exactly what I was going to say. I think the way they've come in and what they've done, I think maybe works or would have worked in a business sense if it was a company that was struggling um, in terms of performance. But it's not a business, it's a football club, and that's something that I think maybe there's been a real lack of understanding from INEOS, is that the fans are what make football, and you have to keep the fans happy because they are the ones lining your pocket. They're the only ones lining your pocket. Sure, you get the money from the TV deals and from sponsorships, but who is viewing those adverts? Who is viewing that football on the telly? Who is going to the games? And it's not just, and that's why they're doing everything. The fans are doing everything. Yes, there's people who aren't fans of Man United, I'm sure, who are going to games or watching them on TV. But 90% of those people are Man United fans. That means they love the club. They love everything about it. They would never, ever see it as a business. And the decisions that have been made in a business sense do not reflect well onto the fans. And that is exactly what Man United don't need at the moment. They don't need that toxicity with all of the other club problems going wrong at the club. And it's just it's getting sad. It's getting really sad. Like I'm an Arsenal fan, and yeah, it's funny seeing Man United lose a game of football every week, and it's yeah, it does bring me some joy seeing them struggle. But then the football head of me, it is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and to see not just how they are on the pitch, but the things going on behind the scenes, the things at the stadium, it's not good for football generally and for English football. And it at the moment there doesn't really seem to be many signs that it's getting better. I hope that they have a long-term plan, and they're sort of hoping in 5-10 years that things are going to be back to how they should be at Man United, because they are such an elite club. But at the moment it's really difficult to see how they're going to do that, and also the way that they're going to do that, whether the fans are really going to be respected like they should be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Imagine if Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who is supposedly a Manchester United fan, who is definitely from the local area, but is supposedly a Manchester United fan, and I say supposedly because you would think that everything that the fans have been crying out for, he would already be aware of prior to taking over, and he would just address straight away. Obviously, maybe a bit more communication. That'd be nice. Like I talked about earlier with the short term pain, what is short term? How bad is it going to get? Maybe a gesture of goodwill towards the club in general. Maybe being like, I don't know, something like, we're going to reduce prices of season tickets and match going tickets by 5% between now and the end of the season because we understand it's going to be bad and we're really sorry. That wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, in terms of all the jobs and the hiking of prices, if they just got rid of one senior player, let's say Casemiro, who's reportedly on, I think, £300,000 a week, that saves arguably everyone's jobs that he's already sacked, unless that he probably feels that they needed to be. And that's a whole separate conversation because, from an optics point of view, you do that, it doesn't look great, but it might be what long term they need. do we, as people looking from the outside, are we ever going to know if that's the right decision? Probably not. But you could probably. I feel like even if you were letting people go at the club, there is still a better way of doing it where you do it more gradually, or you say, well, actually, we're going to be getting rid of these 7 people, we're going to be hiring these 5 people, and you do it all at the same time. It might be longer, it might take. I don't know. Just the optics just look terrible, and I am now to the point already, and I'm saying now, I'm already at the point, only a year and a bit in, where I'm like, I'm not sure if this is any different to the Glazers, and that is the worst thing that you can say to Man United fans, I think.
Yeah, and I think it sums it up. It really does. And as well, it doesn't feel like this could really happen to any of the other top clubs in Europe. I think we've seen the sort of steady decline of Man United behind the scenes over the last 10 years. But could you imagine if this was a Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich? There would be absolute outroar. And I think the way that it's been so gradual with Man United and little things getting worse season on season, things behind the scenes on the pitch, that maybe and like we said at the start of this episode, we're going to be trying to look for the positives, but I think maybe that is the wrong way to go, and it needs to really have eyes open to the situation that Man United see themselves in, not just on the pitch, but everything at the club at the moment. It's really sad.
Yeah, and like you said, as an Arsenal fan yourself, me as a Liverpool fan, how on earth are we looking at one of our both of our clubs, one of our biggest rivals, and just going, it's just really sad. And it is. There's nothing else you can say. It's not. We're not hating on them. We're not even hate watching them. We're generally just watching like, okay, are they going to do something today? Are they going to improve? What's the plan going to be in the future? It is genuinely just really, really sad. And so I wanted to end the topic of Man United and discussion by just some key points, okay, about some of the big people and players at Man United. So let's start off with the top. Uh, Glazers, yes or no? I think for me, it's got to be a no. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's been a no for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. Um, INEOS as a whole, what have you made of them so far? Good job, bad job, or somewhere in the middle?
I think short term it's been a bad job. We'll have to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt of how they're going to do it long term.
But how long is that period of giving a bit more doubt? Because some people apparently, and if they are, I don't hold it against them, already done with them. So how much longer, if it was you, would you be giving them?
What have they been in for around a year? I think they have to have 5 years. I know that's a really long time and it could be worse, but yeah, I think another 3 or 4 years.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm gonna say yeah, I agree with you. I think definitely done a bad job so far. I think Ruben Amorim and his success is massive for Ineos as well, because at least with Ten Hag, you could say he's not our manager, even though they decided to back him. They hired Ruben Amorim. They wanted him. He's the man that the hierarchy want. You really do hope for their sake that it goes off well, because if it doesn't, then I think the first place the fans will get upset with is Ineos rather than the team and the players. So I would say I need at least shoots. I need something. So I'm gonna say 2 seasons from now. So by the time the end of the 26-27 season, so another two and a bit more years, I'd say I need to see more is what I'd say. Um Ruben Amorim himself as a manager, from what you've seen so far, obviously if you've seen any of him from Sporting as well.
Yeah, he's a great young manager, a really good appointment. It's just a really difficult one because they need an immediate upturn, but they also need a long term solution. He's got to be given at least all of next season as a minimum, in my eye. At least. I would be looking for at least another 2 seasons to see where things go. Um, hasn't made an immediate impact, but I don't think that's what the appointment was for. So, it's yet to see. I don't think it's fair to judge him just yet.
I also agree on the caveat though, because I'm trying to think of what's going to be the story of next season? If Man United splash the cash, which they somehow seem to do every summer anyway, despite the fact there's always financial trouble at the club, and that season doesn't start off well, is the narrative going to be, well, you came in last season, you understood these players. Oh, yes, you didn't have your players, yes, injuries, but now over the summer you've got your players, and now you're not performing well either. I think it could turn ugly. Hopefully for him and Man United, it goes well. And I think, yeah, not next season, but the season after, if he's still in the job, that's where you really judge him and his credentials. I will ask, though, on that, what's the worst that Man United could do next season and Amorim still be in the job? Because you'd probably say he definitely could have finished in the bottom half of the league next season. But I'm looking at the teams who are currently ahead of them in the league, and maybe transfers will change that. But are they better than Newcastle, Aston Villa? Not even the squad, just the starting 11. Are they better than Brighton, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea? They're definitely nowhere near Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool. Well, what do you think the worst that they could do next season and Amorim still be in the job?
To be honest, if it was me looking at it, I think it's just about improvement season on season. So I don't think they're going to finish as low as 15th this season. I think they probably will finish maybe somewhere 11th, 10th, something like that, 12th, 11th, 10th. I think if then they can get back up to being 8th, I think 8th is a goal, which is absolutely insane. But I think obviously that's where they finished, I'm pretty sure, in Ten Hag's final season where he actually finished. If they can get it to there, then he could still be around. I do think that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the end of the world if they finish eighth next season. It definitely has to be in the top half next season because United fans are already losing their patience, and I don't think they know they need to go through some short term pain. But I think even for them, this is way more than what they expected. So yeah, definitely have to be further up the table. I It depends to see if they're in Europe or not next season. If it's just one game a week in the Premier League, I think, like we saw with Chelsea a couple of seasons ago, I think it was a 13, 14 when we saw Liverpool almost go for the title. We saw Leicester go for the Premier League title. I think not being in Europe will help, but I think financially it'll also be a burden. So which one do you want to really take? And then obviously the season after, you probably end up getting Europe because you've done well, and then you probably drop down again. It's tough. I will say Ruben Amorim, you got to keep, not next season, season after. I think again the 26, 27 season when you judge him. Same I think with INEOS actually, and I think the players. I think we've already discussed the players. The players we would definitely keep. Any players that you would definitely sell this summer?
I don't think there's many that would be definite sales because, to be honest, I don't think they'd get much money for a lot of them, and I think that could be important for them. Garnacho maybe is the one if they could get a big sum. I think long term probably could help United and Garnacho, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I think obviously Johnny Evans, Victor Lindelof, Christian Eriksen, all available on a free. Just let them all go. That's no brainer. I think you got to try and get rid of Casemiro, mate. I think just because of the fact that his wages are so high, he's got one more year left. Just even if you have to do a Bamiyang and just pay off his contract, I don't think he's really providing anything to that football club. I'm getting to the point with Luke Shaw and Mason Mount where I'm like, if they're not fit, just get rid. They're just going to be a waste. Um, and I think that's probably like the guarantees have to get rid. I think it depends on the players they bring in and obviously what offers come in. If they get like, I don't know, if they get like 40 million for like Dallo, then I think you have to say, okay, we have to get rid of you. I think that's fair enough. But yeah, try and keep the younger core. I think some of the more experienced players, I think, they're fine to get rid of. But there we go. That is how to fix Man United under Ruben Amorim, according to Mev and Toby. Let us know. Do you think there's something else that we missed that we maybe need to talk about next time? What do you think of our suggestions? Anything that you would change? Let us know in the comments below. And with that, we'll move on to the final part of the podcast, which is the quiz.
Yeah, let's move on to squad guesser. So we've each got a starting 11 from a famous game, and we'll be revealing the nationality or club of each player one by one, picked randomly, and the other player simply has to guess where that game is from. So, Mev, if you're ready, would you like to go first or second?
I would like to go second because if you struggle, then I think there's less pressure on me.
Okay, sure. So you're going to hit me with your squad first.
I am, and this is a
Okay, nice.
this is a team in Europe. So I'm going to be giving you their nationalities, and they play a
Nice.
4-3-3.
Nice.
Okay, and your
Yep.
first number is 2, which is the right back who is German.
Okay, a German right back. Could be Kimmich or Lahm, the first two that sort of came to mind. I can't really think of who's like the German right back now. No idea. So let's just spin again. Let's go for it again. Oh, that was a caveat I forgot to say at the start. Yeah, you only get 3 guesses throughout the whole quiz as well, so use them wisely. Yeah, I'll spin again and go for another player, please.
Yeah, sensible when you don't know anyone. So your next number is 11, which is the left winger of the 4-3-3, and they are French.
I'm definitely leaning towards Bayern Munich because this could be somebody at right back now on Coman, or it could be Lahm/Kimmich and Ribéry. So I'm leaning towards Bayern Munich pretty heavily. What year did they beat Dortmund in the Champions League? Oh, I don't know the year off the top of my head. Would you take my answer as Bayern Munich's win in the Champions League final over Dortmund, or do you need the year?
I don't know. Why didn't you put it forward, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let's go. I'm going to go for Bayern Munich's win over Dortmund in the Champions League final.
That is one life lost. That's why I was like, it doesn't matter. It's not the right, not right anyway. So
yeah, I should have realised that when you said that actually.
So your next number is the number 10. So that is the number 9 in the 4-3-3, and they are Brazilian.
Oh, okay, that's a complete curveball. Brazilian striker, French left wing. I haven't a clue, to be honest. Spin again, please, Mev.
Sure. And you have got the number 6 in the midfield, which is Brazilian.
Brazilian midfielder as well. Struggling here, man.
You're really good at these. I had to make it hard.
Could this be Bayern Munich still in some capacity? I don't think so. I think I need to get away from that. Brazilian strikers. Obviously, Ronaldo back in the day. Firmino. Could it be Firmino in some capacity? French left wing? I wouldn't think so. Real Madrid or Barcelona. I can't picture any German fullbacks for either of those teams. Could it be PSG, maybe? Again, it's that German right back is really throwing me off. I'm going to go for another spin.
Okay, your next one is an Argentinian right winger.
Is it Messi? Is this PSG? And somehow with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe? I don't know who the German right back is. Maybe Kehrer? But what game would that even be for? Because Messi joined PSG after COVID. I'm pretty sure PSG were in the COVID Champions League final against Bayern. But it could be Di Maria, actually, in that game. I'm pretty sure Neymar and Mbappe both work in that sense. Don't know about the German right back, but I'm going to go... Yeah, I'm going to go for that. I'm going to go for PSG, the PSG 11 in their Champions League final loss to Bayern Munich.
And that is correct, mate. Well done.
Ah, yes. I'm glad I went for that. That was a bit of a punt, so I'm happy with that one.
Yeah, that's good. So you got the front three right. It was Di Maria at right wing. You got the right back right as well. You said Mkera, or however
Oh,
you say
okay,
his name.
nice. Hmm.
Your next one would have been the right side of midfielder who's Spanish. Do you know who that was?
Fabian Ruiz, maybe.
No, it's actually Herrera.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I forgot about him. That is a throwback. Who was the
Yeah.
Brazilian? The Brazilian centre mid.
So someone who's actually a centre back by trade is Marquinhos.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Little.
your next would have got a Costa Rican goalkeeper in Navas. Then you had a
Ah.
Brazilian centre back in Silva, a French one in Kempembe, a left back, a Spanish one of Bernat, and the other one was the Argentinian midfielder, which was Paredes. So I think you did
Nice.
really well there, and actually I'm a bit worried. So you did that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's that? 6 points to you?
7. I think it'd be, yeah. You
7.
start on 11 after the first player. So yeah, 7 points, which I'm happy with because that was a good one. I like that. Okay, are you ready for
Yeah,
yours now, Mev?
I'm in trouble, but yeah, go on.
Okay, so let's spin the wheel and give you your first player, and it is number 7, which is the right midfielder, and this is in a 4-2-3-1, and they are English.
Okay. Um, I'm just. I realize I need to write the team in the formation. I started writing them down in a list, and it didn't really help me. So, in English right midfielder, I feel like there's so many. It, the first person that came to mind was James Milner, but I am obviously going to spin again. I don't want to risk it.
Yeah, very sensible. Okay, this might not help you much more, but your second player is number 2, which is the right back, who is also English.
Okay. So I'm trying to think. It's definitely an English team. It's got to be. English right backs. You've got loads actually. English right back and right midfield. That's a better guess.
I am just going to caveat this English right midfielder. I wrote it down based on a team sheet online, but there is a chance that the centre attacking midfielder and the right midfielder had quite a bit of interchange in this game. Just to say so.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I don't want to
Who
stitch
on
you
earth
up.
could that be? No, that's fair enough. I mean, I was stitching up with Marquinhos at defensive midfield, so it's fair enough. Um, I am gonna spin again. I need something else.
Yep. Oh, you've got the best one on the team sheet. This is the one that I think will give it to you, and it is number 11, the left winger, who is from South Korea.
Okay. Um, that is definitely Heung-min Son out on the left wing, which makes me think it's the Spurs. What Spurs game could it be? It's got to be the Champions League final against Liverpool. So the right back would have been Kieran Trippier. The right midfield slash attacking midfield. Who on earth are you on about? Oh, Dele Alli, probably. Probably. If it's not Dele Alli, who else could it be? No, I'm gonna go with it. Okay, I'm gonna say it is the Tottenham Hotspur side from the what year would have been 2019 Champions League final, which lost to Liverpool 2-0.
Your answer cut out just at the end there, but I heard enough, and you got every one of those 3 players spot on. So that is a huge 9 points for you, Bev. Yep, Spurs in the 2019 Champions League final. So yeah, smashed it,
Oh,
mate. Big
thank
score.
God. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean South Korea really narrows it down
Yeah,
massively.
there could have been 3 more English players in a row. You could have had an English left back in Danny Rose, an English centre mid in Harry Winks, and an English striker in Harry Kane. Couple Frenchmen in there as well, Hugo Lloris in goal and Sissoko in centre mid. And then 2 Belgian centre backs, obviously Alderweireld and Vertonghen. I think they could have been good little hints as well. And then a Danish number 10. But yeah, Heung-min Son certainly the best card to pull out of that deck for sure.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. I'll be honest. I was thinking Man City, and I was thinking maybe Michael Richards at right back with James Milner right midfield, and then I
Yeah.
was thinking like the Belgium could have thrown me with Company as well, or I think they had a Jason Denayer at one point as well early on in his career. So not necessarily,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean French midfielder. It could have been, depending on the year, it could have been Vieira in that midfield. It could have been Nasri. So yeah, South Korea really definitely helped me out. I was definitely going on the wrong track there, but thank God for that.